All right, here we go. So we got x squared minus 16 equals 0. There's two ways that you can do this one. I guess I'll do it both ways. So the first way I would do it is I would recognize that x squared is a perfect square. And I would recognize that 16 is a perfect square. And they're held together by a minus sign. So when I factor this, x times x is x squared. And now I need factors of negative 16. So I know one factor has to be positive, one factor has to be negative. And I need those factors to add to 0. So I would have 4 times 4 is negative 16. 4 minus 4 is 0. And now that I have this, I can go ahead and set x plus 4 equal to 0 and x minus 4 equal to 0. So I get x equals negative 4 and x equals positive 4. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is, because we're missing the b term, we can actually add 16 to both sides. This only happens when you're missing the b term. That b term really messes things up. X squared equals 16, and then what you can do is take the square root of both sides. X equals, so think of a number where if I square it, I get 16. 4 is one of those numbers, but negative 4 is also one of those numbers. This one's a little weird. I'm going to... This looks strange to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to write it like this. I'm going to multiply everything by a negative 1. And that's going to give me x squared minus 12 equals 0. So you always want to try to factor it first. So if I try to factor this thing, I need, it's a difference, so that's good. Because this is a minus sign, I need factors of 12 that add to 0. So something that multiplies to 12 that adds to 0. 6 and 2, no. 12 and 1, no. 3 and 4, no. So this thing actually does not factor. So we're going to have to think about how to do it a different way. Luckily, we're missing the c term, or sorry, the b term. So we can do this kind of like the way that we did the last one. We get x squared equals 12. And then we can take the square root of both sides. So x equals plus or minus, and I'll do my scratch work over here. Root 12. Think about the biggest perfect square you can divide evenly out of 12. I would say it has to be 4 and 3. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 3 is, we don't know. So plus or minus 2 root 3 is our final answer. Cool. This one, I love these. So think about it. Which one are we missing? We're missing our C. We have A, we have B, we're missing our C. So if you wanted to, you could do the quadratic formula. Some people elect just to do the quadratic formula. The problem with that is it takes forever. I only use it when I need to. So what I'm going to do, I'm missing the C term, so I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor here. So that's going to be a 2x. I'm left with 2x minus 15. And now I have two sets of parentheses that both equal 0, so one or both have to be equal to 0. So I'm going to go 2x equals 0, and 2x minus 15 equals 0. X equals 0, x equals 15 halves. Beautiful. This one, some people are going to run into a mistake here, number 4, because they're going to try to factor this thing right away, or they're going to try to do the quadratic formula. Remember that you have to make sure that your function, your quadratic, equals 0 from the get-go. So we got x squared minus 7x plus 10 equals 0. And then from here, if you want to do the quadratic formula, you can. I always try to factor it first because factoring is faster. X times, oh, that's a Jesus fish. X times x is x squared. Now I need some factors of 10. So think of factors of 10. 10 and 1, 5 and 2. There it is, 5 and 2. And I know that I want them to both multiply to 10 and add to negative 7. So I need a negative 5, and a negative 2. I get x minus 5 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0. So x equals 5, and x equals 2. I think we got 3 more. Ooh, we're getting more difficult here. So I do these with the AC method. And in the AC method, you multiply A times C. So A times C is 6 times negative 3, gives me negative 18. So I need some factors that multiply to negative 18 that add to 7. So some things that multiply to 18, 9 times negative 2 multiplies to 18. I could do 6 and 3, but they don't add to 7. So I'm going to rewrite this as 9x plus negative 2x. And that's the hardest part. And then we're going to write the rest of the problem around it. And now if you remember, we're going to factor 3 times. So here's my first time. I'm going to factor out what these two terms have in common. They have a 3x in common. You're left with 2x plus 3. These two terms have a negative 1 in common. And then we're going to have to go 2x plus 3. So I factored once, I factored twice, and now I'm going to factor out the binomial. I'm going to factor out the third time. 2x plus 3, 3x minus 1. Whew! That's a tough one. If you want to, you could refoil first, outer, inner, last to check it, but I know I did it right for sure. So finally, I'm going to set 2x plus 3 equal to 0 and 3x minus 1 equals 0. So x equals negative 3 halves and x equals positive 1/3. Boom. Boom shakalaka. I was stalling. We got 6 and we got 7 left. We're going to keep it under 12 minutes. This one's a great one because it forces you to work on all of your different algebra skills. So I'm going to FOIL first. X minus 2, cross multiply, also known as the mean extreme theorem from Unit 7. Oh, got a nice little difference of squares there. Nice. So I'm going to FOIL first 2x squared minus 2x minus 4x plus 4 equals, this is a difference of squares, so it's going to be x squared plus 1 minus 1 minus 1. I'm going to combine like terms, so I got 2x squared minus 6x plus 4 equals x squared. The x's cancel out, minus 1. And now if you remember, if you tried to factor again, you're just going to undo. You get what I call the factoring loop. You guys ever been in the factoring loop before where like you factor and then you FOIL and then you factor again and then you FOIL and then you factor again and then you FOIL and you're like, what's going on? You get in the factor loop. Here's how you get out of the factor loop. You get it equal to 0. So we got 2x squared minus x squared is going to be x squared minus 6x plus 5 equals 0. I just had a little freak out because I thought this wouldn't factor, but don't worry. It does. And even if it didn't, we can do the quadratic formula. So it does factor. What are some factors of 5 that add to negative 6? Well, negative 5 and negative 1. Those multiply to positive 5 and they add to negative 6. We get x equals 5 and x equals 1. You might also see it written like this in ascending order. X equals 1 and 5. And notice that those are brackets. I'm always good at making this bracket. I'm always terrible at making that bracket. If you have any tips, send them my way. Last one, I saved the best for last. You got it. Get it equal to 0 first. X squared plus 3x. I kind of tried to trick you here. We can't combine the 3x and the negative 8 because they're not like terms. So now you should always try to factor. But I can't think of any, so let's see here. 4 times 2 Negative 4 times positive 2, 8 and 1, negative 8 and 1. This will be negative 7. The sum will be positive 7. The sum will be negative 2. The sum will be positive 2. None of these are 3. So this thing doesn't factor. So guess what? A, B, C. We're going to do the quadratic formula. X equals, go ahead, sing it. X equals opposite B plus or minus square root B squared. I just write it. Minus 4AC. All over 2A. Cool. So now what I would do is I would simplify the inside. Extra credit if you know what the inside of the radical is called. It's called the discriminant. So it's going to be negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 32. Ooh, 9, sorry, plus 32 over 2. 9 plus 32 is 41, so my final answer is going to be negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 41 over 2. Now, you can't simplify 41, the square root of 41, it's a decimal, and you can't simplify it by trying to reduce it, so you just have to leave it. This one's done. All right, good work. If you have any questions, come back to the Zoom. I can give you more. Peace.